Okay.
All right, now it's official. It's being recorded.
Special.
All right, I just want you to know throughout practice, because it's 30 minutes, you can move your legs. So if you feel something happening in your knees, right, the hips are starting to bother you, you can quietly stretch the legs out and you can change the position of the legs. They don't have to go back to the original position that they were in. And I have a cushion here, but if you have a block or a blanket that you want to sit on, you can use that as well. Also, the wall is helpful. You can sit up against the wall to help keep the shoulders stacked on top of the hips to help maintain your posture. It looks like your screen has frozen, Trish, so I'm just going to give it a minute to kick back in. Oh, and we lost her. There we go. All right, Trish. You can unmute yourself if you want, because it's just us, or you can keep yourself on mute. It's entirely up to you. All right, now that we find cozy, comfortable seated position, you're going to flip the palms and you're going to join the thumbs and the middle fingers together, but you're going to have the middle fingers down like you're trying to touch the base of the thumb, and you're going to cover it up with your thumb. Yeah, so just up close, you would have middle finger in, and then you're going to hold it down with your thumb. Yeah. And then they're going to be face up, resting on your legs. You can have the eyes closed, or you have the eyes closed about halfway and they're at a downward angle. They're looking down towards the floor. So this is a mudra that we use. It's called Shunya mudra. And we use this for hearing problems, right? For people related to people who no longer are able to hear, or for those of us and during those times when we don't want to hear. Right? This can be a blessing and a curse. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Sometimes we have our selective hearing to protect us from unpleasant things, or even from disagreeable sounds or information that find their way to us. But not wanting to hear is sometimes based on a particular kind of stubbornness that can lead, right, to disaster, making things worse. Also, sometimes it's not us, it's another person, it's another situation, right? Where they're not willing to listen, they only want to be heard. So the middle finger that you're holding down with your thumb is associated with the sky, ether. Right? This is the gateway to a higher being. Right? Kind of, you can think of that place when a bird is up in the sky, or when a plane is in the sky, there's a certain altitude where the weather remains pleasant and it remains the same. So you can think of that as kind of the middle finger associated with a certain type of purity. So as we work on listening, hearing, we're going to first start off by listening to the distractions within the spaces that we're in. We're often trying to avoid them. We often think that they are distracting, but we're going to incorporate it into our practice. So you can start with what you hear happening outside of the space that you're in, outside of the room that you're in. Sounds of nature, sounds of cars going by. Maybe you can hear sounds of neighbors. Now you're going to bring your attention to what you hear in the space that you're in the room that you're in. That could be the AC kicking on and off. If there's a clock in the room and you can hear it tick. Then you're going to bring your attention to the breath. So for this next portion, it's going to remain seated. Again, sitting up straight, letting the body hang in a relaxed fashion from your spine. Maintaining a softness in the eyes and in the muscles of the face. Shoulders rested away from the earlobes. And then you're going to use the breath as the center of your meditation, letting yourself feel the in-breath and the out-breath. Notice the difference in the sound between the inhale and the exhale. Now you're going to work on listening, right, versus hearing more like when you hear a sound coming from outside of you. Listening, bringing your attention, your awareness to what's happening underneath the surface of the skin. What's happening, listening to what's happening in the breath, in the in-breath and the out-breath. Noting the coolness, the swirls, the tingling, the pressure, the movement in your chest and or your stomach. doing your best to label these things, not getting attached to them, but just noticing them as they rise up, giving them a label, and then setting it off to the side, patiently waiting for the next thing to listen to notice, to become aware of. During these last couple of minutes, you're going to start to lengthen the breath, adding a few seconds to the tail end of the inhalation, to the tail end of the exhalation. Imagining that you're smelling something pleasant. There's a pleasant scent around you, something soothing, cooling. That could be lavender, that could be mint, peppermint. You're going to slowly introduce yourself back into the room. We've reached the halfway mark in our meditation practice this morning. We're going to use this halfway mark as an intermission. Slowly open up the fingers, open the hands. Gently turn the head left to right. So we're just giving our body a break from being in the still seated position. You can roll the wrists. You could do half circles left to right. You can stretch the legs out, giving you some freedom here to move in a sweet, kind, mindful way. Right. Taking your time. You can extend the legs, you can roll the shoulders. And also take your hands, your fingertips to the shoulders and make circles with the arms. Reverse the direction. You're gonna then release the arms down, slowly twist left to right. Good. And then you can slowly bounce out the legs, point, flex your feet, move your toes around. And then think about if you want to keep the same comfortable seated position that you were in initially, or if you want to change things up, you could, instead of having the legs crossed, you could have the feet together, the heels touching, so you could target the hips. Palms facing up. It's helping with our posture, helping to keep the shoulders relaxed down away from the earlobes. And then you find a comfortable position with the hand. Sometimes it's where the wrist is, or sometimes it's the middle of the forearm. Close the eyes, or eyes are at half mast, halfway, looking down as if you're looking over the nose. You can take those same steps again to find your center, but we don't have to take the same amount of time that we did at the beginning. So you can spend a few breaths, right, versus a few minutes, tuning in to the sounds happening outside. Then you spend a few breaths, spending time listening, hearing what's happening in the space that you're in the room. And then a few minutes, right? A few moments, few breaths, taking time to pay attention to the breath. Now you're going to bring your attention to your thoughts, right, to your emotions, listening to them without judgment, without criticism. And again, using the technique of labeling it. So instead of trying to figure out why you feel a certain way, right, you think of your emotions, the things that you're listening to, they're like passing waves. So when you notice something and it rises up, you acknowledge it, you accept it for the time being, you label it, and you set it off to the side. Right? So you're giving yourself permission to fully experience that emotion. And oftentimes we think that we should avoid certain emotions like anger or resentment, right? It turns out to be the opening, when you don't avoid this, when you acknowledge it, even when you're not able to fix it, but just acknowledging it alone can help to be the very lesson we need to learn from, right? For instance, when you're really studying anger or resentment or bitterness, you can learn to accept it without judgment. This can be the first step toward an understanding of it that begins a very deep movement towards forgiveness, right? Versus trying to suppress it or to push it down. But also know there's going to be some joyful emotions and things that come up. So enjoy it, label it, and then let it go. You're working on not only your level of awareness, but your level of attachment. Now that you've had some time to sit with your thoughts, sit with your emotions, you can make a mental pie chart and see the percentage. What percentage of your thoughts take up the pie chart that's related to positive thoughts or emotions? What percentage is related to negative things? What percentage is related to things that have already happened in the past or things that are consuming your thoughts about the future, right? So you can make a mental pie chart. Now, the idea of the meditation practice, the idea of listening and sitting with whatever we're experiencing, is that we build the skill set to have that pie chart mostly consist of the present moment, of enjoying our company and being able to sit in the present moment. So, see during these next couple of minutes, right? Stick with something that's comforting to you, right? So you can picture yourself in a place where you feel at peace, somewhere that you like to vacation or that you like to visit, just in your mind's eye, setting up that ambiance for yourself, right? Where you can focus solely on the breath. And then anytime something distracting should arise, you try not to avoid it or push it away, Let it rise up, acknowledge it, accept it for the time being, label it, then set it down and see if you can return to the breath or return to that place in your mind that you've created for yourself. On your next breath in, you're going to bring the palms together at your heart. For our closing here, for our closing meditation, there's going to be two things I'm going to share with you. One comes from a book called How to Train a Wild Elephant and Other Adventures in Mindfulness. And in chapter 9, it talks about listening to sounds, which we played with this morning. And it says that we're continuously bathed in sound, even in places we would call quiet, such as libraries or forests. Our ears register all these sounds, but our brain blocks most of them out so that we can concentrate on the more important ones. The conversation, the lecture, the radio program, the engine of a car or a plane. Research indicates that babies can hear things adults can't. Their hearing is acute enough to detect the subtle echoes that occur after most sounds. So we learn early in life to block these confusing sounds out. But when we begin to listen carefully, a new world opens up. Sounds that were annoying become interesting and even amusing when we hear them as some kind of alien music. Background noise moves into the foreground. We discover a lot of noise in our mouth when we eat, especially crunchy food. The neighbor's leaf blower becomes part of the ongoing symphony of sounds. A jackhammer is the percussion section. The hum of the refrigerator unfolds into a tapestry of subtle high and low notes. The deeper lesson here is that listening practice is a potent way to quiet the mind. When we become intrigued by sounds, we want to listen more closely, to listen intently. To listen intently, we have to ask the voices in the mind to be quiet for a while. And when you get to that place where you can be quiet, when you can listen intently, right, that brings us to the second portion, the last portion I'm going to share with you before we end our meditation together, right? Listening, being quiet enough to find that stillness, to find that center, right? So that you can sit with the emotions, with the experience that you're having without trying to escape from it. The Russian author Alexander Solzhenitsyn has written that the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. It is not as if only others have anger, fear, hatred, greed, and aggression. It's not someone else who is the cause of all the problems in the world, but it's the nature of all of us together. So it's a very important task in meditation to learn how to be with the most powerful energies of our own being and to find some compassion and mindfulness and openness in the midst of all of our feelings and emotion. And that last portion came from a book by Jack Kornfield, Meditation for Beginners. With the palms together, your heart slightly tilting the chin down. In honor of the time that you spent working on the awareness, on your own awareness of the inner workings of the mind, right? Working on cultivating compassion, mindfulness, patience, openness in the midst of all the feelings, emotions, and sounds that you experienced this morning. Thank you, Ms. Trish, for sharing your time, your energy, your meditation practice with me this morning. May you receive kindness in the same way it was given. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks, love.
This is perfect for today. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It was so nice to see you.
You too. You too.
I subbed for Adriana last week, so I got to see Lucy. Lucy was last week, you're this week.
Yes, I
So
forgot. I was busy last week and I forgot about the time. I try to put it on my not only my mental calendar, but my computer, but something came up, but I try not to miss it. I really enjoy it.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to the next time that I get to sub so I can see you ladies again.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye, Regine.